Good afternoon, all Kessel fans out there. We started very punctually at 12:30 German time, as is the standard here in Germany. For those of you who are logged in right now, welcome. Today's going to be our Minilift S and Aqualift S webinar, which is the final of the 3 lifting stations and pump station webinars that we've conducted since May. Darko's running all the technical stuff. He'll be reading out your questions if you have any. There's a chat box open for you. If you have any questions, please just write those to Darko, and we'll get those answered for you. For those of you who have taken part in these other webinars, there's something missing today. I'm not sure if anybody knows. If anybody's live in the chat box and notice what's missing. Does anybody know what's missing today? Anybody in the chat box? I'll give you a little hint right here, if you can read that. Speakers Eric Davis, that's me by the way, and also Martin Jais. Martin Jais has got a little bit of a big head after the last couple of webinars, a little bit starstruck. He thinks he's on the level now of Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Kevin Costner. Darko, any famous actors or actresses in Slovenia that you could, are there any good, famous ones?
Not really, but there's the First Lady.
I was going to say that. I was going to random that in a joke, right? The First Lady, Melania Trump, is from Slovenia. But yeah, so Martin chose to skip this webinar. We're going through contractual negotiations with him now. We hope to have him back on board on stage by the next webinar. So today it's just going to be me and Darko. We're broadcasting from the Kessel Customer Forum in Lenting, Germany, right outside the walls from us, just as a fun piece of information. The students who came to Kessel to study are getting their diplomas. This year there's a total about 15 of them. That's normally a 3-year program, and you can come to Kessel to learn to be pretty much anything. You can get a business degree, marketing, logistics, tool making. That's a 3-year program, and they're just getting their diplomas outside of this room right now. And those people, of course, we hire on board. And there's always about 40 to 50 of those students at Kessel. They'll go study at the school or university a few times a week, and then come to Kessel for, I believe, 2 or 3 days a week to actually work. And at the end of the 3 years, they have their certification as a licensed marketing degree or a tool making degree. So today is their final diploma handover for those people involved. But back to the products. Again, this is the last of the 3 webinars about the pumps. And today we're going to be looking at the Minilift S and the Aqualift S. Those of you familiar with the old Minilift, you see it up here in the top left corner. And this was brought out onto the market, I'd say in sort of the late 70s, early 80s. You see some of the other products we put on here that were popular at that time. Here's the Atari. Darko, you're a computer guy. Is this Commodore? Is this a...
Looks like Atari.
Okay, also that. So, and here's the initial telephone, the cell phones. So these are the things that were common in the market when the Minilift came out. As of this year, the Minilift S has been redone, the underground version. And again, it was time for it to be redone. It was and still is an incredibly heavy-duty, sturdy system, but the chamber that was in needed to be modified. We had the older rectangular box with a rectangular cover on top, and it was certainly time for us to move on and to redo that. So again, the first part of the presentation today will be the Minilift S. Here you see the new one, a major advancement in terms of how we designed the product. Price levels we kept very similar, and important to know, this is the entry-level underground lifting station or pump station at Kessel. So I'd say we'd call it the basic system, meaning it's the most basic system we have. But if you do compare to the competition, it really is light years away from the competition. I'm going to ask, is anybody tuned in from England? One of my close contacts in England, I don't want to mention your name, but if you're there, if you can just write Darko in the chat box. I'm going to mention a quick story about the Minilift S and this Aqualift S in England. So if you're out there, 4-letter first name, just write in the chat box. Almost just said his name, then I'll tell you a quick story. I just want your permission first, if that's okay. But today, again, it's the Minilift S and Aqualift S. Run to the next slide. Here's your typical installation. This is a very underground basic system to be poured in the concrete floor. Darko, I see some chats coming in. Anything from England?
Yeah, Alan says hi.
Alan said hi. Okay, Alan, hi. I was looking for the other guy from that company, but Alan was also involved in this order, I'd call it, and I'll mention that in a minute. But in terms of the installation, this is an underground, meaning in the home, in the concrete floor lifting station. It's a single pump system with a float switch designed to handle non-sewage wastewater. Darko?
Alan says, just do it.
Just do it. Okay, Alan. Again, that's Alan from IPS England. He's the in the office, the technical sales guy. Out in the field is Dave Wally, and they were involved. I might as well just say it right now. They were involved in a very large order of these type of systems. There's Minilift S's involved, Aqualift S's. And it was based on a long-term, it wasn't go to the customer, sell the product, but it was a large customer that had known Kessel products for definitely over 5 years, I think over 10 years. And there's one gentleman in the decision loop that made the decision which products to go for. And he, after knowing the Kessel company, the Kessel salespeople in England, we've also met the people here at Kessel. He made the decision based on the product itself that every single one of these homes that needed some sort of lifting station, smaller lifting station, to solve their water problems, and it would be Kessel. So every other competitor was thrown out of the loop, and it was you'd call it a flat spec or a flat specification for Kessel products. And I asked Dave basically why he made the decision, and Dave said the decision was made due to the years he's been involved with Kessel, as well as physically having his hands on the product. So important here is you can look at pricing. We've priced this at a competitive level, but technically there's no other product out there that matches it. We'll see that in a second. Every single part of the system is designed here at Kessel. The pump we make ourselves. We design it ourselves. Every single piece of plastic or polymer in the system has been designed and made here at Kessel. So there's no outsourcing of plastic parts. We're basically a plastics company in the drainage business. So when you see the product, every part comes from Kessel, all designed with one solution in mind. And that's why we're having great success with these products. Because as soon as people see them with their hands, and that's what this gentleman who made the decision to England had done over the years, he's seen it with his hands, he knows the time and effort that's been going into developing it, and that's why he made the safe decision to choose a Kessel product. But quickly back to the installation here, we're in the concrete floor of the building, normally the basement. Again, a basic system for sewage-free wastewater. So here you see in the picture, we have a clothes washer, also a sink. You could also connect a dishwasher to it, or a shower or clothes washer, for example. And that's going to pump your non-sewage wastewater up to the sewage level. Pumping height is limited to about 5 or 6 meters. But again, if you have the typical private home application, which was the case in England, this is perfectly designed to handle that. And this is what comes in the package. And as you open the box, you can already see that somebody spent or a company spent a lot of effort making a high-end product. And everything you need is included. This is a non-control unit system. It's a float switch control pump. Float switch goes up, pump turns on. Float switch goes down, pump turns off. There's an alarm system we can include with it, and I'll show you that in a second. But everything you need here is included with the system. And again, this is what we're trying to solve. If you go to, I'm pretty sure most countries in the world, even I'd say like a high first-end European country, still in the basements there's these sumps that are put in brand new, expensively well-designed buildings, but to handle the wastewater in the basement, there's no real fully thought out solution that's being used. That's what Bernard Kessel came up with the idea, I'd say probably 30, 40 years ago, to stop systems like this. And if you go to a new build in Germany, you'll see a Kessel system in the building to solve this problem. If you go to other parts of the world, the U.S. where I come from, in the home where I lived in, there was a open sump like this, meaning there's a hole in the concrete floor, often open to the groundwater. So in the house I lived in, when there was high groundwater, the groundwater would come from the bottom of this hole up. The pump would need to work. Also, if shower water drained in there, it'd need to work. There was not a cover on top of it. So even in this day and age, in 2020, you'll see in brand new buildings this type of product going in. And the Kessel idea is that's the wrong solution. The export director of Kessel, Michael Feigl, came up with a video that I'll ask you to look at in a few minutes called Get Rid of the Pit. This is what we call the pit, and this is clearly not the right solution to use when you're designing a new house. If you're renovating a house, or if you have a problem with water in the basement, this is not the solution to use. It's an open system. There's moisture issues. There's smell issues. There's access issues. Visual issues when you go down into your basement. Might be a high-end basement with living quarters or living spaces, and you clearly don't want to have an open system like this. So when you move to a Kessel Minilift S or Aqualift S compact lifting station, this issue gets solved. So here's a better look at what's included in the package. Again, like I mentioned before, the complete system with a polypropylene chamber, the KTP 300, meaning a 300-watt submersible pump from Kessel with the vortex impeller, float switch controlled, which you can see here. And again, the main modification was the entire body, the inlet connections, the outlet connections, vertical adjustable cover, tiltable adjustable cover, and also integrated floor drain in the top cover of the system. So if you have a spillage on your basement floor, or you might have water ingressing through a basement window, and if you don't have a floor drain for that application, that water will build up in your basement and cause water damage. So if you design it right, that water can flow into the Minilift S, and as well as pumping out shower water or sink water, it can also pump out any water that might be collecting in your basement floor. And what I mentioned before, every single part here is a Kessel part. We make the tools, inject these parts ourselves here, so every part here is Kessel developed, Kessel made, and Kessel tested. So the big advancements are here. We've got a round tank, we've got inlets ready to go. I'll show you that in a second. We have a new outlet click system. You buy a competitor's pump, you might have to glue a pressure pipe on there, or there might be a threaded system with Teflon thread, or you might use a coupling type of solution. And with the new Minilift S, we have a click system. So you can order as an accessory this pressure pipe, and all you do, honestly, it's a 2-second connection. You take it, clip it in, and the outlet pressure pipe is solved. So in terms of ease of installation, reliability of water tightness, things have gotten much, much easier and much, much faster. Jump to the next slide here. We're going to look at some of these points a little bit more closely. Here is the inlet. Again, on the side of the chamber, the holes are there. It includes 2 inlet adapters. Darko, is it possible to zoom down quickly? We sort of tested this out a few minutes ago. Here's the new Minilift S body. This is actually the KTP 300 pump with the float switch that's included. But just to let you know how quickly the inlets can get attached. These are included with the system. You see that here this has a blind plug in it. So if you don't need to use this inlet hole, you would simply connect this and leave this blind plug here. If you're going to use this as an inlet or a ventilation connection or a conduit cable connection, you simply pop out this violet plug. But in terms of connecting the inlet, this is a watertight connection. I'm doing it right now. This is a no-tool, spin, tighten, and ready-to-go connection. Here you see one that's already on the system. So you see here that I added the inlet connection, or it could have been ventilation or conduit connection, watertight in about 5 seconds. So we're saving a lot of on the construction site time. Head back up to me here. Take a look at the back to the presentation. So again, a very quick watertight connection. And again, here's the push fit. If you are adding an additional drainage pipe, you would push fit that in. That's a DN50 pipe. gasket connection, push fit, ready to go. Fastening brackets. A lot of people don't think about this when they specify or order a product, but when this gets poured in the concrete floor, you'd set it on the subfloor, and then the final concrete pour comes, and if this body is not fixed in place, you can have workers bumping into it. It, of course, should be final in the exactly proper place. When you're pouring the concrete has a tendency to move things around. So in the new Minilift S body and Aqualift S, we've got 4 clips, I guess you'd call it. We can attach threaded bars, dowel them or drill them into the concrete floor, set the proper height of the lifting station, the proper angle, lock it in place, then it is fixed in place while the concrete is being poured. So that's a big advantage. You don't have some loose system on the floor, and when the concrete is wet, you don't have to go over there and make final adjustments. You lock it fully in place, and then you do the concrete pour. And also extension sections, that's an accessory. If you have a relatively deep access or your drainage pipe underground is deeper below the concrete floor, there's of course a extension section offered if this whole system needs to go deeper down in the floor. Non-return flap. All of our systems have a non-return flap. That's a very, very small flap in the outlet section. With our older systems, a little bit difficult to service that. Now we have a tool-free access. To remove or to insert or to service and maintain this non-return flap, you simply, with your fingers, turn this lever 90 degrees, pull out this assembly here, and you have immediate access to the rubber non-return flap. So that non-return flap keeps water in the pressure pipe. When the pump turns on, it automatically, or the force of the water pushes the flap open, pumps the water out. As soon as the pump turns off, the force of the water wants to drain back into the Minilift S, pushes the flaps shut, keeps the water in the pressure pipe, which we want. And during a service and maintenance, you should look at that flap. If there's wear and tear on it, it should be replaced. You don't want to have pumped out water draining back into your tank. So again, to access this flap is a matter of 5 to 10 seconds, no tools needed. So on the specification side of this, if architects, again, these are not products that normally go into huge projects. These would go into private homes or maybe smaller commercial applications. But the specifier doing this, and if you're a private owner, the private owner making the decisions, these things, these advantages you get not on day one when the product shows up, but you get these on year 2, year 10, year 20, the very, very easy maintainability or serviceability of the product. So accessing this pressure pipe flap is ultra easy, ultra quick, and tool free. And again, the connection of the pump, I'll just show the pump here. We saw the pump a second ago. And that needs to be connected to the inside of the tank. Again, that's a tool-free clip connection, so there's no screws, no rubber gaskets. You simply take the KTP 300, push it in, there's a gasket on here, push it into the outlet device, lock down this 2-clamp lever, and the pump is then installed. To remove the pump for service again, you just do the opposite. Here also, the pump is connected and or removed honestly in about 5 or 10 seconds. No tools needed, no wrenches, no clamps, no glue, nothing like that. So you can basically work with the entire Minilift S without tools in a very, very short period of time. If you're a homeowner that does this type of work themselves, again, you don't need any expertise to do it. You could go down, do the work yourself without any problems. Again, as an accessory, because the KTP 300 and the Minilift S is the basic system just with float switch control, if you want to have an alarm device in there, meaning if for whatever reason there's a problem with the system, you get an alarm, there is an extra accessory available, the optical probe. There's again a click connector inside the system, so installing the optical probe is again a matter of 5 or 10 seconds. And if there's a problem with the system and the pump, for whatever reason, is not pumping out the water level will rise, contact this optical probe, then you'll get a video or on the digital display, as well as, more important, audio or audible alarm letting you know that there's some issue with the pump station. So again, this is an accessory to the system. And again, the outlet is one of the big advantages we have, the big advancements. No more PVC gluing or welding and checking for leaks. It's a factory tested click system. So if you add on our pressure pipe outlet assembly, which is an accessory, again, you install it without tools, without glue, without any systems in, honestly, probably about 2 to 3 seconds. You clip it on and you're ready to go. This is out of the catalog. The KTP 300 I mentioned, again, our entry-level system, but as long as you're pumping 2, 3, or 4 meters high, which is standard in a single-family house or maybe a smaller multi-family house, the pump is normally in basement 1 or the main basement. You're pumping up to sewer level, which is usually about 2 or 3 meters higher. So again, that's why this Minilift S works well in that application. 2 different models available. One with the gray cover like you see here. This has a recessed cover, meaning if you have a high-end floor, you might have a tiled basement, you can put those tiles in the cover. And it also, again, has the integrated floor drain. And we also have with a black cover, which is not recessed like this. It's a solid black cover with the drainage slots in the center of the cover. So there's 2 choices that you use there, depending on what type of finish you have on your basement floor. And here are some of the specifications. Single pump system with float switch, a pumping volume 7 liters. Again, it's a smaller polypropylene tank with a smaller pumping volume. And if you need anything else, if you need a duo pumping system, if you need more storage volume, if you want an alarm system automated with it, then you move to the Aqualift S. So again, that's important to know. Minilift S basic system. As soon as you want extras, then you move to the Aqualift S system, which we're actually talking about right now. Darko, how's the chat room looking? Anything good?
No questions.
No one saying any bad language or bad things about me?
Not yet.
Okay. No, not yet. So we're going to now jump to the Aqualift S. I only have about 2 or 3 slides to show here because this is built up very, very similar to the Minilift S. And here we see now the accessories that you have if you move to the Aqualift S. Available in a mono float switch system, just like the Minilift S. There's 2 different pumps in here, which I'll show, that are available, which I'll show you in a second. So the most basic system is mono, no control unit with float switch. The more popular systems are what we call the tronic versions. That's with the control unit. Then you get more information from the control unit, what's happening with the system. So we have a single pump, mono, tronic we call it, with a pressure switch. Here we see the pressure switch inside the system. If it's an important system that needs to pump away the water, then we of course always recommend go for a twin pump or a 2-pump duotronic system. 2 pumps, if and when one pump goes down, you get an alarm letting you know that there's a problem with one of the pumps. But the second pump, most important, takes over all the operation. So with any single pump system, as soon as the pump goes down, nothing's working. If this is maybe in your basement connected to a shower that you use once a week, not too critical, you can replace the pump over the next few weeks. If it's an application that needs to pump the water out when the water comes into the system, then we always recommend a 2-pump duo system. Then you're always online. If one pump goes down, the second pump takes over. So what does the Aqualift S offer? Like I said before, single or twin pumps. We have 2 pumps that fit inside the Aqualift S. It's the GTF system or the GTF 500, which is the medium-sized pump, or there's a more stronger, more powerful GTF 1200 pump available. And based on what pump you use, that'd be based, I'd say mainly a little bit on the flow coming in, but more importantly on how high and how much you need to pump. And we'll see that in a power curve in a second. So we have 2 pumps available. We also have a GTF resistant, it's called. That's made out of a very high-end steel. There's some steel in the system. This is a very, very high-end stainless steel. And if you have corrosive fluids, or if you have the condensation from a heating system, which is a very aggressive wastewater that this needs to pump out, then there's always the GTF resistant. So if you have chemical issues or low acidity issues, let us know. We can let you know if the standard one or the GTF resistant is the pump or the motor to choose. Again, air pressure sensor. which is as soon as you have an air pressure sensor, that means you have a digital control unit. On the digital control unit, you see the water level. Again, this is a very simple air pressure system, but it turns the water level sort of into a digital signal. And on the control unit, you can see the actual water level in the Aqualift S. And you can also make changes. The float switches is relatively fixed, but with the pressure system in the Aqualift S, you can digitally set pump on levels, pump off levels, alarm levels, things like that. So there's some flexibility in use with the higher end Aqualift system. And again, the protected optic alarm, that's in this system right here. It's the high-end Kessel optical probe. We protect it in this little tube to prevent splashing from contacting the probe and establishing false alarms. So we have an air pressure switch running the daily pumps on, pumps off systems. And as a backup, if there's a problem with the system, standard is the optical probe, which gives you an alarm if there's some problem with the system. We move to a polyethylene tank, which is groundwater resistant. If you have groundwater issues, if you're pouring a waterproof concrete floor that's being protected from underground moisture from the ground, then the Aqualift S is rated groundwater safe. So if you have you would want to stay away from the Minilift S in that application. But if you have groundwater issues, forces of groundwater, or you want to connect a waterproof flange, which is available right on this level of the system, we can remove the cover, put in an additional section with a waterproofing flange that can be poured in your waterproof concrete. That's a possibility with the Aqualift S. Vertically and laterally adjustable covers, just like the Minilift S. Might not sound like a big deal, but believe me, when you're on site pouring the final concrete floor, if you have a system that's not really vertically adjustable, you might be throwing stones underneath the body to get the right height, or throwing your water level on top to make sure it's flat or has the slant you want. Again, with a Kessel system, you have a gasketed connected upper section, which at any point in time, even I guess right before the final pour, can be vertically adjusted, laterally adjusted up to 5 degrees in case you have a slope in your floor, and also twisted. If you have a tiled floor pattern, for example, in your basement, you could twist the cover so the square cover matches up and stays in parallel lines with the tiles you have in your system. Lock and lift cover, which both systems have, Minilift S and Aqualift S. This is another advancement. The older cover was slightly more difficult to install and remove. We now have a lock and lift system. There's a special key that comes with the system. When you put in the polymer cover, after you do service work, for example, you put in the cover and you take a key and lock it so it's not removable. That's also good in a public application so nobody can just open the cover and access the system. The even better advantage is when you need to remove the cover. So there's no screws anymore, no clips. You put your key in, you unlock the system, then with the key you actually pull out the cover. So there's no rusted screws or damaged threads from the screws. Everything is polymer corrosion free. Lock it in a second, unlock and remove also in a second. And again, the waterproof flange I mentioned earlier. So here, these are the two systems. I'm going to go one more time to the power curve again. Here is the two different pumps available. The GTF 500, again for non-sewage, so all the systems we're talking about today do not handle toilet water. We do have systems with toilet water. Those are called our Aqualift F systems. But here we have a GTF 500 pumping to about 8 meters in height. The more powerful GTF 1200, slightly more pumping height, which is rarely the issue in these applications because we're in the basement one normally, pumping 2 to 3 or 4 meters. But you see here, there's a significant more flow or liters per second that we can handle with the GTF 1200. We don't recommend to always choose the GTF 1200 just to be safe and have the extra reliability. We recommend you contact us or go into our Smart Select program where a calculator will tell you exactly which system to use. And if the GTF 500 is fine with you, then Smart Select will choose the GTF 500 for you. It's, of course, slightly less expensive, and there's no reason to spend more money on a pump you need. Whenever you choose a Kessel pump, there's an exact pump that's fit for your application. We don't recommend putting in a double the power pump that can pump twice as high. That's wasted money, wasted electricity. There's always the exact system that you want to work with. But again, this is the Smart Select output. This is, I don't expect you to be able to read this, but here we see the power curve of this application. Just as an example, I put a home that's pumping 2 meters high. We have a 2 liter per second flow. So here you can see, it says right here, the Aqualift S. And here Smart Select did choose the GTF 1200 pump. So as soon as you go into Smart Select, you get the article number. You can click on that. Gives you all the information you need. You could send that to our partner in the respective country you're in, or our partners in those countries can use Smart Select to help the end customers choose the exact lifting station that they want. So that sort of wraps it up. Again, that was the webinar, the Minilift S and Aqualift S Compact webinar. I would ask you to, right after we're done, which we pretty much are now, Darko, is any questions from your end?
We have a question about the odor. If there's a recessed cover,
yep.
How to handle that?
Should have mentioned that. Very, very good point. All of our systems come with that integrated drain you see on top. Again, important to remember is in the body, there's always a little bit of wastewater. The pump does not pump out every single milliliter, so there is standing water. It's not sewage water, so again, there's no direct sewage odor, but if the water stands for a few weeks, it could sort of get a little bit stale, so to say. So we can protect that. I guess I can, or here you can see it. In this cover, we can add a water trap, either a water trap or a multi-stop odor trap, for those of you who know what the multi-stop is. And then the water in here, or any odors that might develop in here, are sealed in the system. Important to that point is, so that's the good question, yes, you can protect against general odors by putting a water trap or a multi-stop in here, but if that's the case, you need to ventilate the tank. When the pumps turn on, not Kessel pumps, but basically any pumping system, when water comes in, it needs to force air out, and when the pumps turns on, it pumps out water, which needs to be replaced by air.
The size of the ventilation pipe?
Yeah, in this case, we have DN50 connections here. You can add additional pipes here. On the Minilift S, you can add on-site an additional hole with a special drill bit up to DN70. The Aqualift S goes up to DN100. But that's an ultra important question I want to get back to again. Yes, you can prevent against odors, but if you do, you need to ventilate the system. And again, that's not a negative of Kessel. That's how it is in the market. When there's a pump being involved, it needs to be ventilated. If you don't, you can run into problems with proper operation. So when I screwed on that inlet before, that could have also been your ventilation inlet. That should be normally, if properly done, vented to the outside of the building. Again, we've had the Minilift normal in use for 30, 40 years, and eventually, sometimes we'll get a customer that calls up and say, it's got a light odor, so it's never some horrible pungent odor because there's no sewage in the system. But if it's a system where the pumps don't run often and the water might stay there for weeks or months on end, then you might want to seal it off. And then again, during the installation, it's helpful because adding ventilation after the system is in place is difficult. So during installation, it's always a good idea to ventilate to the system. Darko, on your side, everything good? So we're going to finish up. If you have any questions, contact your Kessel partner in the country you're in. If you go to Kessel.com and search the country, you can get your exact Kessel partner in that country. But I'm just going to ask you if you have a few seconds. We have what's called a get rid of the pit video. If you go to youtube.com right now and search get rid of the pit, the first hit on top should be the Kessel get rid of the pit video. It shows you how to do things wrong. It shows you those ugly pictures I showed in a second. Not sure if I have that here. And it gives you the solution. So these are the solutions to that problem. Ultra high end. And the good thing is for the specification people, when you choose the Kessel product, you choose the highest level product out of the market, and you have a good feeling after you do it. You know all the problems that might come up will be solved. And the same thing on the private market. If you're a private person ordering this product, you can compare prices, but when you open the box and have your plumber install it and you work with the system in the first week or 5 years later or 10 years later, the high-end quality of the pump, the heavy dutiness of the system, the ease of maintenance, ease of serviceability. You get that years and years and years down the road. So I'm going to wrap things up now. Thanks for joining, and please remember, right after, might as well do it right now, youtube.com, get rid of the pit, and you can watch our video of how these systems solve your problems. Thank you, and until next time.